Helldivers 2 is seeming more and more greedy as time goes on. It's a paid game that costs $40, but for some reason it has rather egregious free-to-play monetization. And there are aspects of it that just have fizzled out to the point of essentially meaning nothing, such as weapon customization, mech customization, which was speculated. The devs said we might do that, but now it's pretty much guaranteed never going to happen. We have free-to-use weapons that you can find in the world, the shovel and a break-action shotgun. All of a sudden, you get that exact same shovel in a warbond, so it's behind a paywall if you want to actually have it instantly in your loadout. The break-action shotgun has the barrel turned from vertical to horizontal and turned to medium pin, which it always should have been, and all of a sudden you can just buy that from the superstore. And all the while, these things can go down and people will defend it, saying, you can farm everything for free. And I suppose everything is free when your time is meaningless. How do they trick an entire audience? They brainwashed all these individuals into believing that exact thing. Because 5 hours to farm stuff is no big deal, especially if you're doing super credit farm on level 1 through 3 that everyone loves to do. It's so riveting. Maybe the metal farm that you have to do no matter what, even after you buy the warbonds. You pay your real money or the in-game currency, you're still farming metals that are capped at 250 and haven't had that cap changed in 2 years. It's almost poetic how the devs just made a terrible change to metal acquisition as I'm recording this video, because now you won't get metals for major orders unless you log in during the active window of that major order, which may seem like a good idea because people are encouraged to actually contribute, but they don't have to. They just log in and boom, you're good. This is just to encourage and this is just to boost the active player count more often, is my assumption. But I think that the result would be folks are less inclined to play the game now because they have a more annoying time of grinding warbonds. I do want to point out that those that justify this are of the same energy as people that kick others for joining a mission late, because after all, they didn't contribute much. So why should they get rewarded? It's weird. You'll have a glazed diver armada telling you to simply play the game, as if farming super credits isn't done on levels 1 through 3. Super riveting stuff. And metal acquisition is horrendous on the higher difficulties. The same thing goes for super credits. So by playing the game, what they truly mean is to clock in for less than minimum wage to grind these currencies. But like I said, people don't value their time. So who cares? But I care. And I get this stuff for free. That's the craziest part. I get these things for free. They're unlocked instantly. But I want people to not have to sit there and go through this monotonous, mindless grind that isn't even engaging. I want things to actually mean something. I want this game to give people something that's worth going after. Instead, we lose all sight of that. We have, again, weapon customization. What was the expectation behind that? Okay, we have 25 levels for weapons. Some of it's a bit mundane. There's so many free spaces and things. They put pretty remedial things on the higher unlocks. Like getting a better scope takes level 24, I guess, okay. But surely we'll get new things to add to that in the future. It's just a basic system. We'll get new stuff soon. No, we won't. I don't think so, at least. And I believe at this point, the only thing we could get is going to be bullet changes, like changing your ammunition to incendiary, maybe, to poison, maybe. But even then, maybe not. Because what does Coyote do? What is Coyote's entire shtick? It shoots fire bullets. So what are the chances they bring that system now? Close to zero, son. What about a underbarrel attachment that actually does something that isn't simply improving your ergonomics and reducing your recoil? Things that they could just change the weapons themselves, but we have a system to do that instead, and they likely won't improve that any further. Not going to happen most likely, because now we have the 1-2 grenade launcher AR that has horrendous ergonomics for some reason, even though the grenade launcher isn't that crazy. It's a nice little tool to have. But that potentially rules out the possibility of getting that in the first place. And the same thing goes for an underbarrel flamethrower. That's another thing that's just going to be the entire shtick of the Stroker SMG. So you see how just in that system alone, weapon customization, we have lost pretty much the entire potential for new progression that would actually mean a little bit more. All because it fit well in a warbond. It was just a better idea to have that stuff be tied to the warbonds that either cost money or cost time. And when players invest time into a game, that makes the game more money. I think there's probably more complexity to that than I can imagine, but baseline, when a game has more player numbers, a higher player count, there's random folks that see that and go, must be a good game. I'll play it. It's good for optics. And that's cool. I can respect that. But I can't respect that the devs, they don't seemingly respect our time. And before going any further, I'm getting really sick and tired of people trying to say, it's Tencent, it's Sony, it's anyone's fault but the developers. So sick of that garbage. Why can't we call a spade a spade? Hey guys, the folks that have been doing some silly things for a long time are still doing silly things, making not great choices. That's not likely. Whoa, there's no way that's happening. It can't be. It's got to be someone else's fault that there are bad decisions being made in a game that have had them for the longest time, far before Tencent ever got involved. That isn't to say that Arrowhead doesn't make good decisions, but there are many that they've made that just didn't have to happen and still to this day don't make any sense. And they'll do it all under the guise of trying to make the game more realistic, but in reality, they're just chasing their grunt fantasy kink, and they don't care if it impacts the gameplay experience. And to me, it undermines what Pilstedt said on stage in 2024 at a games conference in reference to how Arrowhead, the development studio, views the game, in which he mentioned they want to encourage player creativity.
We also knew that we wanted to make a game that lets and forces the players to be creative.
Except when players find creative ways to solve problems, those solutions get removed, even when they're not game-breaking. I'm not talking about the things in which they trivialize the gameplay and make certain things ridiculously overpowered. I'm talking about reloading with a stationary reload weapon like HMG Epoch machine gun using the jump backpack. Why does that get removed? Who is the genuine Muppet making that decision? It's not just one person, though. It's the studio, I feel. The studio as a whole has these horrendous views for their game, and it again is them chasing their grunt fantasy kink. You can also view it as them chasing their vision for the game, one in which it will never be realized because every time they actually go after it full-heartedly, the game's numbers drop drastically. But for some reason, they still maintain this massive ego that it'll work out just fine. And this ego, by the way, is the same reason for why we won't get transmog. Because even though the devs are giving us their manufactured transmog in the sense of the recent armor that has a name I can't even remember because it's just not unique, you get 50% explosive resistance for armor and extra grenades. Or extra armor rating. Those perks exist in other armors, but they're just put together on this one, which is transmog and given a new look. The devs can do it, but we the players can't. Not allowed. Why exactly? You won't know what your teammates' perks are, and that will somehow matter. Said no one ever, for the most part. Some folks will say that just because the dev said it, and they like to parrot what they say. But in reality, your teammates' armor perks do not have any impact on your gameplay. And even the examples in which you could maybe make, there's not a major difference. I'm using an arc weapon, and I know my teammate has arc armor. I can shoot them. Okay, how often does that happen? Very seldom often. Realistically, maybe 0.05% of players ever benefit from that thinking to begin with, whereas the vast majority would benefit from transmog because now they can pick the perks that they actually enjoy using with armor that looks good, and that also benefits Helldivers too because they can sell armors based on the look, and they don't have to get cartoonish. I'm not asking them to get like unrealistic with the armor looks. They can just have more leeway to actually make stuff that looks cool in the game. It's still in universe. You can do both. There's tons of armors in Helldivers 1 they could just put in Helldivers 2 and not worry about having a new perk because them having to focus on a new perk causes other issues. Oh, the perk sucks. It's not creative enough. It's not really worthwhile. Like the recent one with stamina getting hit. If you get hit, you get back stamina. As if that matters, bro. I'm going to die if I get hit in this game for the most part. And this also, by the way, just benefits warbonds. I'm not trying to say that warbonds are like the greatest evil in Helldivers 2, although it's definitely looking that way. It's more so that Helldivers 2 it's plagued by the devs' egos, and that's also mixed in with greed. And this is for some reason taking away from an otherwise fantastic experience that we could be having, because all of the potential is just slowly being drained away from the game. And this will not really, it doesn't give anyone what they actually want. It won't give the devs a more profitable game, and it won't give the players a more enjoyable experience. Whereas if they just, I don't know, made the game more fun to play, they would make more money. I and many others understand that Helldivers 2 is a live service game, one that has to make money, otherwise the devs are working for free, and that just isn't sustainable. But the devs themselves have to recognize their vision for the game isn't a profitable one. The whole grunt fantasy kink. They also have to begin to value player time a lot more than they currently do. That involves reviewing and revising the progression systems. Warbonds being the major factor that has new content, having that be such a time-gated issue is ridiculous. I'd be much more for having those be faster to unlock after you already pay money. So it still costs the money. You can still grind for super credits. Don't change that necessarily, but definitely improve the metal acquisition and cost aspect. They could do something so simple as to remove the page progression system. You buy the warbond, but you have to progress the first page to get the second, third, so on and so forth. You bought the warbond. Why can't you just unlock the things within it whenever you please? I just got this. I'm going to go ahead and get the last page item because I want to. Who cares? It's just gatekeeping for gatekeeping's sake. It doesn't serve a real purpose. That's the thing that I'm really arguing for. I'm not saying, yo, Arrowhead, be okay with making less money. Just be okay with players getting to the fun content faster so they can actually enjoy the game. Is that a problem? Now, obviously, keep some things tied to level progression. Level 20 for railgun, level 2 for AMR, I forget the exact numbers, but that's a big deal. Don't go too crazy, because then it's like get a level 100 for a item, and that takes way too long. But Helldivers 1, you had systems where doing certain difficulties unlocked certain things. Killing a Hive Lord, I'm pretty sure, gave you a cape. What if killing a Hive Lord did the same thing, but also gave you a weapon unlock? Maybe. But for sure, explore the difficulty aspect. Doing 7 through 10 difficulty can unlock their own stratagems, their own items. And in that case, you can maybe say, well, players can't handle that difficulty. There are folks that can solo that and carry 3 people if they want to, and that encourages communication, people to get outside their comfort zone, and maybe even see that those higher difficulties aren't that wild. They're not things they can't tackle and have fun on. And that gets people to actually play the game in different ways and find something new they might enjoy. I feel that that's a much better path forward. Also, in terms of progression systems, look at the XP gain for weapons, sample acquisition. You had a mission a long time ago called Retrieve Essential Personnel. You get 15 samples in a single POI, getting like 80 samples in 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes solo. That was fun. That got people like me that don't need samples to gather them just for the sake of doing so. I told the devs in Sweden that, and it's been crickets ever since. Like I've very much been an advocate and the proponent for making progression in this game better. So why is it so slow to do anything along those lines? And instead, we see progression get worse, even as soon as today, with major orders not giving you medals unless you log in. I point these things out not to say you shouldn't play Helldivers 2, you should quit the game, don't give them money. Instead, I want to see them improve. It's quite simple. I still enjoy the game. If I didn't, I wouldn't play it. In fact, I've been playing a lot less recently in the past few months for that reason. When there's new content, I'll play the game, but when that goes away, I stop. Because the base game isn't improving at a rate that I think is reasonable due to the lack of balance passes, which is weird because the devs apparently have a lot of third-party developers that they're passing off work to for warbonds and such. So how are they not finding the time to do balance passes, of which I'm only asking them to like buff weapon numbers? That's the main change I'm looking for. Improve the things that suck, go on from there. That's a whole different thing though. Point is, I think Helldivers 2 is losing the plot, and I'm a little worried because a lot of the hope that people have is using speculation, and as we can see, that speculation is likely going to fall flat. So what's there to look forward to? New content here and there, but a lot of the main systems that they propose and have in place are regressing. It's unfortunate. Anyway, thank y'all for watching, and have a good day.